So, before we start the food, I think it's appropriate that we introduce and ask Mike Parkinson to say a few words. Of course, we had originally asked his dad to join us tonight, and we're pleased that his two sons are here, and Mike is going to speak on behalf of the family. Thank you, Mike.
Very much indeed. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much. When Waggy asked my dad a few months ago that he was celebrating George's debut, my dad said, yes, when? He loved George. Sadly, my dad's been unavoidably delayed, so he can't be here tonight. But he would have liked me and my brother to be here. We used to work together, my dad and I used to do live shows, and we did a book about George, and we used to do a show about him. So what Dad and I thought we'd like to do when we came up here was to start off our little talk about George with a little clip, which we made, really, about it. And it includes a little tribute my dad did when George got an award at the 2005 Sportsmanship of the Year Awards. So take a look at this clip and remember George in all his glory, and then I'll say a few more things about my family and George Best. Thanks a lot.
And George starts weaving and...
I mean, you can tell from all that my dad loved George. He was the closest thing he ever had to a brother, and being an only child, it made him value the relationship ever the more. You'll probably read in the program about how in the same year as George's debut, my father did his first celebrity interview with none other than Mick Jagger. What you may not know is that it wasn't, as he writes about it, a slice of good fortune, because it was actually part of a master plan on his behalf. He claims it all came about because on the day, the reporters that he was in charge of were all out reporting, or so he says. Who was he trying to kid? The fact is, ever since he was a young boy, when he used to watch the starlets of Hollywood in the back row of the Rock Cinema in Barnsley, he wanted to be part of the fame game. The thing is, his best friend George was different. He just wanted to play football. Fame stalked him and eventually consumed him. My dad was also writing for the Manchester Guardian and was an eyewitness to the rebuilding of another team out of the decimation of Munich. One day, Sir Matt told him that he had found someone special. And on the day we are remembering, Dad was there at Old Trafford to witness the unveiling of that talent. In the first half, George was marked by Graham Williams, a left-back with the nickname Killer. Matt removed him from Graham's jurisdiction at half-time, probably in sympathy for Williams, who had been tormented by this slip of a lad. In later years, George, in the company of my father, met Graham again outside Stamford Bridge Stadium. They were attending a Chelsea match, and Graham came up to them and said to George and Dad, "Hello, Michael. Hello, George. Lovely to see you." He said, "George, just do me one thing." And he said, "What's that?" He said, "Could you just stand still in front of me and just look me in the face?" He said, "Well, why do you want me to do that?" He said, "Because every time I play football with you, all I ever saw was your arse disappear down the touchline." What Dad witnessed that day was the debut of a very special player, and hindsight would reveal it to be a much more significant event. The birth of a poster boy for the cultural revolution of the 60s that was exploding into life outside the turnstiles of the Theatre of Dreams. But if you look even closer, you will realize on that day, George created the template of the modern-day footballer. When George stepped onto the field, the crowd had a treble section alongside the usual bass. From then on, footballers could become celebrities outside the stadiums they played in, and a generation later, average players could become millionaires. We all know that he was taken from us too soon, both as a player and a man. My dad tried to talk to him about his drinking, so did Matt, so did anyone who cared about him. George just wasn't interested. He lived his life as he wanted to and made no excuses, but left us with indelible memories, one of which I will just share with you now, and it involves when George used to come down to the house when he was in trouble with the paparazzi. He would arrive at the house with the latest iteration of Miss World. He would walk into the house and my father would be standing there like a bad-tempered headmaster about to dress George down. He would say, "Hello, Mary. Hello, Mike." He would then take a left. He would go out into the garden, get a football out of the shed, and it was, "Let's play football with George Best." He had 3 of us to play with, myself, my brother Nick, Andrew, and the family cat. And the game was get the ball off George. He was the most competitive man I've ever known. He never let us get a touch. The next week, after the weekend, I went to school, and I was at a Catholic primary school, so being truthful was very important. And we were asked what we did at weekends. So everyone said, "Oh, I went for a walk with my parents. I went to the cinema. I went to the museum." And they said, "What do you do, Michael?" I said, "Well, sister, I played football with George Best." And she said, "Now, don't lie, Michael, because God does not like liars." He said, "I know, it is true." He said, "If you repeat that one more time, you'll be in serious trouble." And I did. And I was given 13 Hail Marys, 27 Our Fathers, and the rest of the afternoon to contemplate my immortal soul. So the next weekend, George came down. I said to George, "You got me in trouble." He said, "Well, how?" I told him. He said, "Give me a football." And he gave me a football, and he signed. He said, "What's her name?" She said, "Oh, it's Sister Cross by nature." He signed it to Sister Cross. Michael did play football with me. All my love, George Best. And I took it into school. This is a true story. And I walked up to the desk, and there she would say, "What's that?" I said, "It's a football. It's also a gift for you, so give it to me." And I gave it to her, and she read the message. And I swear she blushed under her wimple. Well, I never really wanted to say this in the same breath, but rest in peace, Dad. Rest in peace, George. United again. And I can guarantee you, George is still not listening. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike Parkinson. Some fine words indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to serve the first course, but we do have some other surprises, some very special guests here going to speak as the night progresses, but more about that later on.